What if Robb Stark took Casterly Rock? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Robb reads the missive in his hand slowly, his fingers twitching as he resists the urge to crumple up the parchment and throw it aside. Yet he knows none of that will change the reality of the situation. The Battle of the Blackwater ended in a Lannister victory. Not just that, but Stannis Baratheon is now on the run. This was all due to Tywin Lannister getting word of the attack on the capital, something he had wished to avoid. And yet, Edmure had delayed the Westermen enough for the messengers to reach them, urging them to turn their forces back. He wants to be angry at his uncle for such foolishness, and yet Robb holds his tongue. He knew that it wasn't his fault. The king had instructed his uncle to hold Riverrun, and that he did. But perhaps he should have been clearer with his instructions. Unfortunately, there is no changing that now, and while he might want to hold his uncle responsible for that, there is no one to blame but himself for the latest misfortune. From atop the battlements of the crag, Robb watches as a significant portion of his army marches off, not to battle, but back to their castle. His companion watches from the corner of the wall, Lady Jane Westermen of the crag. She was just the lady who tended to his wounds when he arrived, but now she was his wife. The Freys had not taken kindly to this, and decided that since they had no marriage pact, they had no reason to remain loyal, and with them goes a sixth of his forces.
I apologize for the trouble I've caused within your army, Your Grace.
We won't have much of a battle line without them. I have worked with less in the stepstones, but I won't lie. Things are not looking good for us. Without the Baratheons threatening King's Landing, the Lannisters can turn their attention onto us. And with the Tyrells at their back, we are playing the long odds. Some might say that it is time to make peace and bend the knee to the Iron Throne. Those who claim that are fools. The time for peace is long past. We lost that chance when the Lannisters started winning, and when Catelyn released Jaime. With the Kingslayer, we could at least offer something. Tywin Lannister won't forgive the boy who made him look like the fool. Aye, he might offer terms. One so humiliating and devastating that we might never be able to challenge him again, and make us wish we had died in battle.
For the second time, Robb wishes he could blame Tully, this time his mother. Jaime had been their golden egg, perhaps the only thing they could bargain peace with, and she had let him go.
Then what is it we can do? We cannot defeat them outright, but we can outlast them. Another opportunity may arise that will allow us to make peace, but until that happens, we must secure our position and get more bargaining chips. We won't find that in the Riverlands.
Are you suggesting we don't return to Riverrun? But what about the defense there?
Plain defense is exactly what the Lannisters would want if I were them. It means that Casterly Rock and the rest of the West will be safe, and lets them slowly wear our forces down. No, we do that, and we surrender what little advantage we have left. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. We must regain momentum, and ensure Tywin Lannister appears weak before his bannermen and his Tyrell allies. Besides, Edmure has shown he can handle a defense. Let him protect the Riverlands. So long as we have the Golden Tooth, we can support each other's armies.
It is a bold strategy, and while Robb has some concerns, he's willing to try. Boldness has carried them this far. It might ensure their success now. They soon ride out with their remaining 5,000 men and send word to Riverrun and Roose Bolton, trying to make sense of their current situation. Unsurprisingly, the Freys have pulled out of all armies, leaving them deprived of nearly 4,000 men. At best, Robb may have 25,000 swords left. His numbers were further depleted as Roose reports that Robert Glover has taken 3,000 men to try and attack Duskendale. While initially furious, Robb realizes this might be a blessing in disguise, as it will force Lannister's attention away from the Westerlands and buy him some time to act. There was also some good news as Roose added that his forces had managed to retake Winterfell, although it had been thoroughly sacked. His position is difficult, but not disastrous. Robb orders that all remaining Northmen and Rivermen hold the line and play a defensive battle. Edmure is to defend Fairmarket and Maidenpool at all costs, while Roose takes command of protecting Harrenhal. While the defeat of the Ironborn means that Winterfell is safe, there are several other houses whose seats were lost. To retake them, Robb sends words to the Umbers and Manderleys and tells them to gather whatever men they can find, even to recruit the mountain clans if necessary. Lord Wayman is even tasked with naming his cousin, Marlon Manderley, as Castellan, and tasked with restoring Winterfell, then eventually pushing the Ironborn out of Stony Shore. Although he would have preferred a younger man to handle that, he understands that there aren't too many he can call upon there. To Edmure, the Blackfish asks him if he can send as many men as he can spare to the Golden Tooth to reinforce Robb's army, which is still depleted thanks to the Frey's departure. This at least helps keep the army intact, and helps silence some discontent among the lords like Galbert Glover, who fear for the status of their seats. Even Rickard Karstark is eventually pacified when he hears that they will continue terrorizing the Westerlands. He is satisfied, but as they ride out, the Blackfish begins formulating a strategy to help them get advantage. While Tywin's decision to ride out and save his family in King's Landing helps cement their alliance with House Tyrell and defeat Stannis, it does not mean the Westerlands are almost entirely helpless. The only army to oppose them is the battered remnants of Sir Stafford's army, which numbers 4,000 men. With that army licking its wounds in Lannisport, Robb rides southwest toward Case, which is a respectable-sized trading town. This will give them the prospect of loot and the opportunity to find ships. Being all mounted, they can outpace the poorly trained levies of Sir Davin and reach Case first. Grey Wind takes the lead, and they soon lay siege to it. However, Robb does not have much in the way of siege weapons, and instead surrounds the town, while they send ravens to the Lannister army to support them. Yet, while they prepare for battle, the Blackfish and Grey Wind find weakness. In the town's aqueduct, they see its foundations are starting to crumble. And while the bulk of the Northmen create a commotion to distract the guards, a handful of miners begin digging through the cracked foundation to create a gap. As the besiegers draw closer and keep the guards' attention, a gatehouse unit is surprised when Grey Wind suddenly lunges at them and tears through their ranks. He is followed by the Blackfish and 10 other men, who cut through the stunned sentries and begin to raise portcullises. Northmen soon pour into the opening, and the defenders are no match for them. Robb personally leads the charge to the citadel, capturing it and taking Lord Kenning's family hostage. Yet this also leaves him trapped in the peninsula, as Sir Davin's host soon arrives with an army, now bolstered by fresh levies and outnumbering them by 2,000 men. The initial clashes that break out are inconclusive, but Robb loses several hundred men, soldiers he cannot replace. Though Sir Davin takes losses too, he slowly begins to push the Stark army back. Reluctantly, Robb agrees to withdraw his forces back to Case, where they find themselves under siege. However, the situation does not last long, as after a week, horns suddenly blow behind them, revealing the banners of House Piper and Smallwood, who were part of the contingent of 1,500 men sent by Edmure to reinforce their army. With their forces caught between both sides, the Lannisters now find themselves trapped as Robb's men rush out. Though Devon fights fiercely, he cannot break this encirclement, as Robb's cavalry surrounds the fleeing Westermen and herds them right into Lord Piper's infantry. Their pikes thrust outward and cut down Lannisters by the dozen. The young son of Stafford Lannister fights his way towards Lord Rickard, hoping to avenge his father's death, but the big Northman sweeps his greatsword and takes Davin from shoulder to waist. With that, the last Lannister army in the Westland crumbles, giving Robb free rein to attack. Blackfish organizes raiding parties to begin striking at the unprotected castles of the Westerlands. This double defeat is a stinging blow to the Lannisters. Though they were victorious in the Blackwater, these defeats take some sheen from that success, as many Westermen had to leave their homes at the Northmen's mercy, much as the Northmen are reeling from the Ironborn attack. The difference is that Tywin now has no one in the Westerlands to retake the region for him. Instead, he must turn towards the Tyrells, though the problem is that the bulk of their forces are also in King's Landing, leaving only about 15,000 less reliable men in the Reach. Willis Tyrell and the Reach Lords begin mobilizing an army in preparation to invade Westerlands. Any effort to move soldiers through the Riverlands proves difficult, as Edmure and Roose have fortified Maidenpool and Harrenhal, preventing anyone from crossing without a fight. Some lesser lords like Mark Piper are even striking out from Fairmarket and Stony Sept to invade the Reach, forcing them to direct soldiers to protect their territories. Despite that, Tywin insists on remaining in King's Landing to govern and orders Kevin Lannister to round the Reach to reinforce the Tyrells, while all the remaining castles not yet taken strengthen their garrison and simply resist until the Reachmen can reinforce them. With that, Robb gathers all the masons and engineers he can from Case and orders them to begin constructing siege equipment as he at last turns his attention to the prize of all prizes, Casterly Rock. The few ships that they do manage to seize transport them right up to the gates of this mighty castle, where they lay siege. Yet this is no mere border castle. Casterly Rock looms large atop a massive bluff. The stronghold is nearly as large as Winterfell, and is garrisoned by a strong force of almost 500 men. To capture it from the Lannisters is not an easy feat, even if the bulk of the Westermen are occupied defending their own domains. The only consolation is that with Sir Devon gone, the defense of the castle falls to one of Tywin's nephews, Damian Lannister. The siege goes slowly, as the siege weapons that Robb brings with him are relatively small and unable to seriously damage the gates of the mighty castle. In the meantime, the Tyrell alliance continues, and their marriage alliance slowly comes into effect. Randyll Tarly manages to defeat the Northmen outside Duskendale, which allows them to concentrate their army and begin pushing into the Riverlands. And yet, their greatest defeat does not occur on the battlefield, but during their wedding party as Joffrey is murdered in the midst of his feast. The primary suspect of that murder is none other than Tyrion Lannister, leading to his arrest. This throws the Lannister family into chaos, as it leads to another delay, preventing Tywin from marching out. Instead, he must oversee the trial of his son. This proves to be little more than a farce, as evidence is planted and witnesses are instructed to provide biased testimony to paint Tyrion as guilty. While part of this is to get rid of him, it is also to ensure that it is brought to a speedy end. Even his efforts to demand a trial by combat end in failure, as his champion is slain. Then, in the dead of night, Tyrion makes his escape. He disappears, and when the castle awakes, the imp is gone. However, the littlest Lannister leaves a parting gift. Tywin Lannister, dead on the privy, ensuring that the Lannister dynasty collapses. A city-wide search is organized to find him, but no one can even find a hint of him. It is as if he disappeared into thin air. And the banners of House Stark ripple in the salt-laden wind outside Casterly Rock. Catapults throw stones the size of oxen heads, but the rock barrier trembles. Its golden lion stares down from the battlements, unblinking, defiant. Each morning, Robb walks the lines, watching men construct siege towers and haul stones up from the shore. Morale thins like smoke, rations grow tight. The gulls feast better than his soldiers. Southward, word trickles in from scouts. Tyrell banners on the horizon, pushing slowly north. They reclaim burnt villages and abandoned outposts one by one. They are under the command of Lord Hightower and his sons. Slow progress, true, but progress nonetheless. Blackfish mutters that the Reachmen are more gardeners than warriors, their men ill-trained and needing constant drilling. But still, their numbers swell with each passing week. The Blackfish does what he can. Taking 1,000 hardened men, he rides hard into the Reach's advance, striking like a wolf among sheep. Small battles, sudden ambushes, burning stores before the Tyrells can use them. Enough to sting, but never enough to halt the march entirely. He cannot halt a force more than 10 times his size. By the campfires at night, Robb studies the rock, searching for weaknesses. His council offers no new solutions.
If they can be fed from Lannisport, we could sit here until the end of days, and the rock will still stand.
It is on one such bleak evening that a hooded rider arrives. The guards bring him in at spear point, and when the hood falls away, the camp falls silent. Tyrion Lannister stands before them.
Your Grace, I hear you're having some difficulty with my family home. Why are you here, Lannister? To make a bargain. You want Casterly Rock? I want Casterly Rock. Help me take it, and I will rule it in your name, so long as you hold the Westerlands. You dare? Give a Lannister the rock? Better we burn it to the ground. And as for him, hang him before its walls. It might show his kin what would happen if they dare continue their resistance. 2 things you should know before you decide to play Hang the Dwarf. First, I designed much of the rock's cistern system. I can put you inside its walls without the need for a single ladder. Second, as long as the rock's harbor is open, ships from Lannisport will keep them supplied forever. You don't have the men to take both. You will never starve them out. And why should I trust you? You want a show of commitment? I will let Lord Karstark kill every other Lannister in the castle, so long as I am left alive to rule. That is the depth of my loyalty.
The tent falls into stunned silence. Even Karstark stares at him, not with anger, but with the grim understanding of a man who recognizes true hatred.
If this is a trick, if this were a trick, I would have pulled it already. I say trust him. If he deceives us, then we'll have his head before he leaves the tunnels.
And so it is agreed. That night, under moonless skies, a chosen company of Northmen slips through a narrow waterway at the cliff's base, led by Tyrion himself. The cistern stinks of salt, mildew, and secrets. The Northmen continue making an effort to create a distraction. Great John Umber himself offers to lead an assault with a handful of ladders and a few exceptionally brave, or stupid, men. Unsurprisingly, this assault fails, but it at least keeps the garrison's attention. Below, the wolves are already inside. and then the gates are thrown open. Suddenly, Grey Wind is howling, and the army streams inside. The garrison is thrown into a panic, but as Lord Karstark emerges from the sewers, stinking and soaked in water, he leads his men to cut through any soldier foolish enough to get in his way. By morning, the Lannister banner flies atop the walls, and Tyrion sits in his father's seat. The slaughter was not as complete as Tyrion had promised. Many Lannisters, especially the young ones, were spared under Robb's orders, as is Damian Lannister, then Castellan of the castle. He is spared only because the Lannisters still hold Harry and Karstark, and Rickard understands its value as a hostage. Far to the east in King's Landing, word reaches Cersei. She listens in stony silence as the maester relays the news. The Starks have breached Casterly Rock, and then she explodes in anger, throwing the letter across the room and berating her family for their stupidity in allowing this to happen. Although Lord Leighton and his sons, Garth and Gunther, vow to retake Casterly Rock, this only angers Cersei further. If they are to depend on the Tyrells, then the Lannisters will be relegated to a junior party. Without Tywin, they're already pushing their claims, and she realizes that this will only give them more leverage. Her nails bite into her palms as she calls for Pycelle.
Send word to every bannerman. Abandon your halls. Muster every sword. We march on the rock at once. I will not let the Tyrells claim my family's seat as their victory.
Though reluctant, the banners of Craig Hall, Sarsfield, Fairman, and Serret ripple in through the morning wind as their columns wind up for the long road toward Casterly Rock. With their seats under threat, the last thing any of them wanted to do was go to war, yet Cersei was clear. Now, 3,000 Westermen, armored in bright steel and crimson cloaks, advance in measured ranks. From the battlements, Robb watches their approach with narrowed eyes. Yet they have a secret weapon. The Westermen known Casterly Rock only as a citadel. Tyrion knows it as his home.
They'll hit the Lion's Gate first. That's what my cousin would do. A straight march up the slope, banners high, all very heroic, and very stupid. You're certain? I grew up here, Your Grace. I know my father's bannermen. Pride for reason. That's why we'll burn them before they reach the walls, especially since they don't know about the hidden gates.
The attack begins at midday. Horns blare, drums, thunder, and the Lannister bannermen form into 3 wedges, driving up the narrow approaches. The slope forces them into tight ranks, just as Tyrion predicted.
Now!
From above, the black cauldrons tip. Boiling oil cascades down the rock face, igniting where it splashes onto pitch-soaked straw set along the approach. As fire devours them, the rear shoves forward, unaware of the trap ahead until arrows begin to fall like rain. At the western flank, a smaller host under House Lefford tries a side path. Tyrion watches them through a spyglass and smirks.
They're heading for the old tunnel. Collapse it.
A deep rumble shudders through the ground as hidden charges bring down the tunnel mouth, burying the attackers in stone and dust. And then, from the hidden gates Tyrion pointed out, Galbert Glover, Mage Mormont, and Rickard Karstark begin their assault from behind, cutting off their retreat. By dusk, the field below the rock is a ruin of broken men and trampled banners. The survivors scatter, their retreat turning into a rout as Northmen on horseback ride them down. Robb stands with the Blackfish on the battlements.
That's the last of the Westermen field host in the region. The rock is yours, Lord Lannister.
It also means that all eyes are on them, and not the Blackfish who enters Case in the dead of night and uses the few trading galleys docked there to strike at Lannisport. The city is normally heavily guarded with men, yet most of them had marched out to support the Westermen's house, leaving only the city watch. 2 days later, sails bloom on the horizon. Blackfish commands a small fleet of seized merchant ships, their decks crowded with Stark spearmen. At dawn, they make landfall beyond Lannisport's harbor walls. The city guard barely manages to stand before being overrun. By midday, warehouses are under Stark control. The docks bristle with northern banners, and the Lannisport fleet lies moored under Robb's command.
Your Grace, we have our navy.
Weeks later, the fleet ferries men north, where Robb can bypass the twins entirely. He stops at Seaguard to send reinforcements and supplies he's captured before turning north. Robb rides through the gates of Winterfell, where he sees the reconstruction effort in full effect. The banners of House Manderly flutter alongside the Stark direwolf. To Robb's surprise, Lord Wyman himself greets him in the Great Hall. Yet the normally jolly lord is not smiling.
We took a prize in your godswood. A boy, Wex Pike, one of the Ironborn survivors. He tells a different tale than the one you might have heard. The claims that the Boltons can defend your house are a lie. According to the boy, They had slaughtered both Northmen and Ironborn with equal fervor.
That's madness. I mean, surely an Ironborn of all people would say that. Perhaps to sow division.
Perhaps, but a few of my knights have said similar things, and I am gathering the survivors from that battle. More importantly, there were reports before that of Ramsay Snow's unsavory behavior. Besides, there is more. He swears your brothers live.
The words hit Robb like a hammer.
How can we be certain?
In response, Wex holds up a picture he drew, one of a large direwolf and a boy being pulled on a sleigh. They were emerging from a cave. No, the crypts. Robb's blood runs cold as he sees this and realizes there is something going on, something he doesn't know about. And while he comes to this realization, their full effects are displayed in the south as Roose squats on Harrenhal with the largest force of his remaining Northmen, some 8,000 men. And they were tasked with keeping the Lannisters and Tyrells from crossing the God's Eye. They have stationed their men across most of the most important crossing points and roads, and yet a few less obvious passes were conveniently left unguarded. These places were left open for Randyll Tarly to begin his attack. Before long, they circle Harrenhal and begin striking from the trident. The Lannister men soon follow and capture a few minor castles. This proves to be a much-needed victory for Cersei, who is still reeling after her losses in the Westerlands, and now the rise of the Sparrows in the city. Both of these continue to put pressure on her regime, all while the Tyrells come off as heroes who are saving their Lannister allies. By recapturing the Riverlands, Cersei might at least gain some semblance of control in the Seven Kingdoms. To accomplish this, she secretly reaches out to House Bolton and Frey, assuring them of their alliances and promising pardons and the chance to rule if they are to aid them. To that end, they continue to sell out their allies. The Freys hold their position with half their army, but make a show of support by sending the other half to aid Roose Bolton. Together, they redeploy their forces and focus on protecting houses that they see as potential allies. The Brackens, Goodbrooks, Bootons, and what's left of the Derrys. The rest are left high and dry. Lord Edmure is left in a difficult position, struggling to organize a defense when half his army refuses to even follow his deployments. He is forced to pick up the slack left over by the Boltons and Freys, trying to win victories where he can. At some points, he wins a victory, but at others, all he can do is retreat before Randyll Tarly's march. He sends desperate pleas for Robb to send reinforcements, but the king in the north has his own problems. While he's managed to retake most of the northern castles from the Ironborn, he also has to deal with the wildling threat at the wall. The Night's Watch had sent pleas to the warring kings. The Iron Throne had rejected it, as did Balon Greyjoy. Stannis, meanwhile, had been conducting strange rituals on Dragonstone, hoping to summon a stone dragon. Some claim he had sacrificed one of Robert's bastards. Seeing as no dragons have emerged, it seems to have failed. This leaves only Robb to answer the call, and even with his depleted army, he manages to crush the wildlings. But his army is exhausted. He issues a call to arms, but few heed this call. There aren't many who can still answer, as their best men had already gone south. The king in the north is tempted to simply bend the knee and cut losses, but he knows that this would be a dangerous notion. It might have been possible with Tywin, but Cersei appears unstable, and as they invade the Riverlands, their position remains shaky. So instead, Robb turns to recruiting more men yet again. Rather than just calling for them, he crafts a letter, pleading with his men to send aid. He says he understands that they had sacrificed much in this war, that they had seen their sons go north and never return, that they saw their homes burned and their lands left vulnerable. His heart bleeds to ask more of them, but the war is not yet won, and he cannot win on his own. The answer soon arrives as volunteers step forward. They are not young or well-equipped, but they still come. Greybeards fear the coming winter, and the clansmen know they do not have enough resources to survive. Levies from White Harbor and captured Bolton men, survivors from the Battle of Winterfell, and volunteers from Stony Shore. Soon, Robert's army grows by another 5,000. Coupled with the riverfolk and Northmen he has with him, Robb can boast 10,000 men who sail south with him. Thankfully, when they arrive south, Lannister and Casterly Rock remain under Tyrion's control, ensuring they have a friendly port to deploy their troops. There is some good news, as Tyrion managed to bog down the Tyrell army, as after the loss of Lannisport, he had picked up the scattered survivors of the Westerlands. Seeing how Cersei has failed to protect them and allowed the Northmen to rampage across the west, they instead move to Tyrion, whose diplomatic approach has given them some measure of peace. House Westerling suddenly finds itself in the center of this, as Robb's marriage to Jane suddenly gives them more prominence. Tyrion is quick to reward them and strip less reliable allies of their lands. House Lefford, Sarsfield, and Canning all fall into step as Tyrion hires sellswords to help occupy more castles. This allows him to bog down the Tyrell forces and even begin pushing them back. Meanwhile, in the Riverlands, Edmure struggles to hold the Tarly and remaining Lannister troops back. Maidenpool is occupied, and the surrounding castles near Harrenhal are captured as well by Lannister forces. With the south and east falling, Riverrun becomes increasingly valuable, and the Bolton forces retreat towards the castle to defend it. Yet their orders are to betray Edmure. However, the fall of Riverrun won't be enough. He served with a young wolf long enough to know that he has a few tricks up his sleeve. Simply gambling on defeating him in battle will not be enough. So instead, he sends secret messages to Lord Karstark, whom he is still thirsts for revenge, and isn't pleased with the prospect of having to rely on the Westermen in their war effort, and sends secret messages to him, asking him to betray Robb. At the end, there's a promise from the king that if Robb is slain in battle, Harrion will be released to him. Though the loss of his two sons still grieves him, the prospect of getting his eldest back is enough to spark some joy in the old lord. Yet, that joy quickly turns to ash in his mouth as he realizes what it would mean. While he's had his differences with Robb, he's never had cause to doubt him, especially as the young wolf has refused to yield to Lannister demands. He isn't even too opposed to Tyrion, not after the dwarf allowed him to wet his blade on Lannister blood within Casterly Rock. And yet the promise Roose makes is tempting. Rickard spends a sleepless night mulling his prospect over, and when the morning comes, he appears before his king, bloodshot, his hair tangled, and his mind racing. He kneels before him and bows his head.
Your Grace, you know I have followed you through the hardship and pain. I think that shows that I am a loyal bannerman above all things. But it is for that loyalty that I come now with ill news. Some are plotting against you. I have received a message from Roose Bolton, asking that I turn my 300 swords against you when we march.
He reaches into the folds of his cloak and pulls out the letter sent to him by Roose. Robb reads it, and his eyes narrow. It's like a ball being dropped into the pit of his stomach as he studies the letter. He thinks back to what Lord Mandalay had told him, and here is the proof he needs. And then he realizes just how close he was to being betrayed, and how vulnerable his mother and uncle are. Slowly, Robb offers Rickard a stiff nod.
You've done well bringing this to me, Lord Karstark. Now I know more than ever that you are a true friend of House Stark. Thank you, but that is also why I ask for your help. If I refuse this letter, I am certain they will execute Harrion. I cannot bear the thought of losing my last son. So please, Your Grace, save my boy. I will do everything I can. You can count on that.
Lord Karstark offers a weak nod before leaving them behind. Robb glances at Jane and squeezes her hand. The young queen offers her king a kiss and rests her head on his shoulder. Beside them, Bright and Tully smile sadly.
A man is prepared to go to great lengths in the name of love, Your Grace. Count yourself lucky that Lord Karstark kept his head and didn't try something foolish. Indeed, though he did not say it, I wonder if he blames me for it. If I hadn't abandoned the phrase, we might have had a better chance at getting his son back. You did what you thought was right. No one can fault you for that. The day a man goes against his heart is the day they lose the right to call themselves a man. If he hated you, he would have gutted you in his sleep. But instead, he revealed everything, even when he risks losing a son. That is loyalty and virtue. The Blackfish speaks truly. I've spent years following my father's wishes, all while I got burned along the way. I sacrificed my happiness for it, yet I did so out of fear. I doubt Sir Rickard fears you. He loves him. Robb had risked his life to save his father, just as Lord Rickard risks for his son. That is loyalty. And yet you speak of loyalty and love with such sadness in your voice, Sir Brighton. The type of sadness that only comes from losing one you love. Did anyone ever say you talk too much, little Lannister? Oftentimes. Hence why I almost lost my head. Still, am I wrong? His name was Sir Alan of Old Stones. Wait, are you... how... And with a hedge knight, no less. The Stepstones. The two of us fought together there. But we did. Until he lost his life fighting the Golden Company. Afterward, my brother insisted that I could forget about it with a marriage alliance. And well, the rest is history, as they say. Is that why you never married? Ah, Your Grace. When you lose a fire like that, lighting a candle will never compare. especially if it means betraying who I am. Well then, Uncle, as your king, you can be certain I will not ask a thing from you. How touching. So much so that I might even offer my aid in helping you get back Karstark. You? And how exactly do you hope on achieving that, Tyrion? Well, I have a plan. It is risky, and some might say it's foolish. Some might say that about everything we've done here. What is the plan? Simple. You have many of my father's bannermen, Lord Kenning's family, and several of my relatives whom I have not ransomed. You could trade them for your Northmen. Cersei would never consent to such trades. Cersei wouldn't, but my uncle will. He is the one with the army. He is the one the Westerlords might turn on first. We will need to do something to prove they should still follow him. Besides, even some Lannisters care for their boys. You have 2 of his sons. He will surely agree to that. When he does, he will not be able to refuse other lords who demand their kin be released. All of this is assuming he is not aware of this plot to betray King Robb. The odds are better than you realize. This plot reeks of my sister, and right now she and my uncle are likely not on speaking terms. He may not know of it, and that chaos is your opportunity. The negotiations are quiet, almost invisible to the camp. Messengers come and go under the cover of night, their seals broken only in guarded tents. No proclamations, no feasts, only parchment and whispered agreements. It is just as Tyrion predicted. Although Kevin has little love for his nephew, he desperately wants his sons back, and is feeling the pressure on his bannermen. Terms are agreed to in the dead of night. In Lannisport's harbor, Harrion Karstark steps off a galley, eyes scanning the banners above the docks, the direwolf flying beside the line of Lannister. On the quay, Martin and Willem Lannister wait under guard, the sons of Kevin pale but unharmed. The exchange is swift, and no one speaks until the ships are well away. Elsewhere, Sir Willis Manderly is traded for Damian Lannister, the luckless steward of Casterly Rock, as he's led back to his own men. Lord Kenning's wife and children pass into the arms of their kin in return for Robert Glover, gaunt but alive. When the last handshake is made, Rickard Karstark sends a single raven south, the message short: "My men are ready to turn their cloaks." With that, the army at last rides out to confront the invading Reachmen outside the gates of Riverrun. While Edmure was anticipating a siege, Robb sends riders ahead and informs him that they will risk battle outside its walls. The request is strange, and many wonder what the young wolf is planning. However, he has not lost a battle yet, and so they decide to risk his plan. Days later, Robb appears east with his banners streaming around Riverrun. Edmure's walls gleam in the distance, but the open ground before them is already crawling with enemy steel. Randall Tarley's Reachmen, a strong Lannister contingent led by Sir Jaime Lannister himself, gold-haired, glinting under the sun. In the center are the Freys. On the rise behind the Stark vanguard, the Karstark infantry stands in ordered ranks, placed deliberately behind Roose Bolton's men just as the cavalry are placed behind Robb. Rickard himself rides at the side, supported by the Greybeards, the older warriors who seek to water these fields with their blood. The fighting begins in the center, River Lords clashing with Frey men-at-arms and Tyrell pikemen. Steel rings, shields splinter, and the ground churns to mud under the press of men. Robb's left smashes against the Lannisters' line, gold and crimson against gray and white. On the other flank, the Tyrells rush into Roose's spears, opting to fight defensively and letting the other side commit themselves on the attack in favor of preserving their strength. Midway through the struggle, the deep call of Bolton warhorns splits the din. It is the signal, the moment of betrayal. But when Karstark men turn, it is not against the Stark line. The Karstarks behind them draw steel, and 1,000 of these warriors fall upon the Boltons. Roose's formation buckles under the sudden assault. Amidst their ranks, the Blackfish rides up and down the lines with the contingent of the Rivermen, who ride with him in the Westerlands. He looks towards the confused northern infantry, the Serwins, Manderlys, Tallhearts, and Hornwoods. This is Bolton treachery. They had planned to betray your king. Cut them down.
The battle breaks into chaos. In the flanks, the Reachmen are confused as they watch the Northmen fight one another. Meanwhile, the Riverlords push the Freys hard, pushing them for their double dealing. On the left, Robb's cavalry hammers into the Lannister flank, but makes little headway, at least until Robb orders his infantry forward. The Greybeards lead the charge, their old bones willing them forward one last time. They do not care whether they live or die, throwing themselves into the spear wall in hopes of breaking it. Some even laugh as they are run through, but then cracks begin to form as the contingent of them falls. They leave a gap in their wake. Through the smoke, Rickard Karstark sees it and plunges inside with his men. Jaime Lannister holds the line, sword flashing in his offhand as he tries to shout orders. With a roar, Rickard spurs his horse forward, smashing through the last rank of guards. A spear pierces his side, but he ignores it. Robb follows with the rest of their horsemen. He warns the Lord he is going too far inward, but Rickard does not hear him. His greatsword arcs once, twice, and the Kingslayer falls, crimson staining the trampled grass. The Lannister line buckles. Tyrell banners waver, then fall back. The Freys break entirely, cut down as they run. By dusk, the field belongs to the Starks. The Tyrells are in retreat, pursued by the Blackfish and his outriders, while the Boltons are in chains, watching Roose dangling from Riverrun's walls. The Freys, punished. The Westermen who yield, forced to bend the knee to Tyrion, who holds Casterly Rock and Lannisport unopposed. In King's Landing, the bells of the Great Sept toll. The Faith militant rise in the streets, and Cersei Lannister is forced to walk in humiliation as she commits her walk of atonement. The Tyrells sue for peace. In the west, Kevin's own men mutiny, seizing him in his command tent. He is brought before Tyrion, who magnanimously allows him a choice: bend the knee to him or live his days out in exile. Kevin chooses the latter. With that, Mace takes command of the capital, and the defeat of his army makes him at last sue for peace. They agree to recognize Northern independence, if only because they do not have the resources to keep the Faith militant at bay and fight a war with them. They also agree to recognize Tyrion Lannister as ruler of Casterly Rock, though he must pledge allegiance to Queen Marjorie and Tommen. While symbolic, in truth, Tyrion is closer with his Northmen allies due to the marriage pact with Jane Westerling. As Robb and the rest of his army prepare to depart north, he pauses his horse and watches Lord Rickard approaching his son. The two men share a tearful embrace, pulling each other close, their faces a mixture of joy and sorrow as they begin their journey back home. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.